So far, we've covered the implication family, where we didn't have to pay attention to arguments in the stimulus. We just accepted the statements in the stimulus as true and looked for things that followed. But now we're moving on to the characterization family of questions. In this family, we'll almost always get arguments in the stimulus, and we'll have to characterize, or in other words, describe different aspects of the argument. The most important part of any argument is its point, its conclusion. And so without further ado, let's talk about main point questions. Historically, there are only a couple of these on every exam, but they're in many ways the most fundamental question type in logical reasoning. In a main point question, our job is to pick the answer that accurately expresses the conclusion of the argument. If that sounds pretty straightforward, that's because it is, for the most part. On main point questions, we just have to find the conclusion and pick an answer that says it. But there's one wrinkle we need to address. On some problems in logical reasoning, arguments are actually a little more complicated than just premise versus conclusion. Now you want to sit down for this, or if you're standing, make sure you grab onto something. Sometimes arguments have multiple conclusions. That's right, not just one conclusion, but two or theoretically more than that, if the LSAT writer stubbed a toe that morning and wanted to take it out on you. In these cases, we need to distinguish between what's called the main conclusion and a subsidiary conclusion, sometimes also called an intermediate conclusion. The main conclusion is the ultimate point, the end point of the author's argument. It has support, but does not support any other statement in the stimulus. A subsidiary conclusion, however, is like a conclusion that's on the way toward the main conclusion. A subsidiary conclusion has support, but it also provides support to the main conclusion. For example, let's take a basic argument with just one conclusion. You should be careful about serving tortilla chips at a party. After all, some people are allergic to triangle-shaped foods. Here, the conclusion is the first statement, and it's being supported by the second. People's allergies are a reason that we should be careful. But consider this. You should be careful about serving tortilla chips at a party. Some people are allergic to triangle-shaped foods. Thus, you might have a serious problem if one of those people were to inadvertently eat a triangle-shaped tortilla chip. Here, the statement that some people are allergic to triangle-shaped foods is a premise that supports the last statement, so we know that that last statement is a conclusion. But we also have this first statement, you should be careful about serving tortilla chips at a party. What's the relationship between this statement and the last statement? The last statement, that you might have a serious problem if one of the allergic people were to ingest a triangle-shaped tortilla chip, that's a reason supporting the claim that you should be careful about serving the chips at the party. So that means that the last statement is a subsidiary conclusion. It does have support, which is what makes it a conclusion in the first place, but it provides support to the first statement. And the first statement then is the main conclusion of the argument. It's being supported and does not support anything else in the argument. On main point questions, there usually aren't multiple conclusions, but if there are, we're looking for the main conclusion.